Good evening, and thank you for coming to the November 5th, 2020 business meeting. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you guys so much. We are joined tonight by 7 of our board trustees, our superintendent of schools, Dr. Timothy P. Harney, our assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, Dr. Ted Fulton, our interim assistant superintendent for finance and operations, Mr. Luis Frontero, our district legal counsel from Ingerman and Smith, Mr. Edward McCarthy, our district clerk, Ms. Suzanne Benetti, and our grade student rep, Ms. Emily Denton. As always, there are 2 opportunities for the community to participate during the Board of Ed meeting. The first is just before the board takes up its agenda, and the second follows the disposition of all agenda items. If you'd like to speak, we ask that you come to the podium. You must be a resident of the Bayport Blue Point School District. If not, you must be voted in by a majority vote of the board. Just so you know, Board Docs has a timer. We'll put the timer up on the screen. We're asking people to keep it to 3 minutes per person. So you'll see the timer up on the screen. It'll turn yellow when it gets to 30 seconds. As always, the Bayport Blue Point Board of Education meetings are live streamed and posted thereafter. The live stream is in the back. And if you'd like to follow the school district on Twitter, you can follow the school at BBP Schools, and you can follow Dr. Harney. He's always looking to get his Twitter followers up, so you can follow him at BBP Soup at any time. At this time, we'll open it up to community members for any new or old business. If you just come up here, state your name. New or old business. Not hearing any. We have a special report by our superintendent of schools, Dr. Harney.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Good evening, everybody. Just a couple of updates for you. As Mr. Miller alluded to, we do have a presentation for you tonight, so we'll do that first. But just a couple of things. Last week, we had Mr. Heimowitz back, who did a presentation for a number of our parents on social media, so that went well. Just a couple of other things coming up to pay attention to is next Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. It is a half day for our students, and it's also a go home early drill. So just so you can have your times, the high school will be at 10:15. The middle school will be at 10:45. Pre-K will also be 10:45, and then elementary is 11:15. That's the times that the students will be actually dismissed. And that includes the 15-minute go home early, just so you're aware. I believe a message went home to you tonight, just so you'll have that as well, so I believe that. Also, you know that we have a wellness task force that we've had for a number of years, and if you remember us, last year we were talking about trying to do a run, jog and a run, or walk, and so we have picked a date. It will be December 10th. We actually have already a number of people that have signed up, so thank you for that. It'll be December 10th, and it'll start off at Blue Point Elementary. So it's, again, to bring additional suicide awareness. The first 100 will also receive a shirt. So if you can come join us that day, that would be great. We're calling it the Community and Cocoa event. We figured it's getting close around the holidays. Why not have some hot chocolate as well after we have our run? So that's that day. Just as a couple of things, as you know, the first quarter, I can't believe I'm saying that, has ended at the secondary level for the middle school and high school, and then the elementary is just a week or 2 after Thanksgiving. Also, you'll be getting something from me in terms of just a list of a number of the holiday events. So obviously during this time between now and the winter break, we have a number of events, whether it be concerts or tree lightings or a number of events going on, so we'll be getting that out to you as well. Congratulations to our girls volleyball team, who were Suffolk County champions. If you happen to be there on Friday for the Long Island Championship, it could not have been any closer. Unfortunately, we were on the wrong end of it, but the girls played tremendously, so congratulations to them, and also to Coach McGravey and her staff. And this Friday, the boys football will be playing in the Suffolk County final. That is at Stony Brook at 4 p.m., so hopefully you can join us there. I think that's it, Mr. Miller. With that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harney. We'll throw it over to our student rep, Ms. Denton. How are you tonight?
Good, thank you. Good evening, and thank you again for having me. We've had a number of sports successes this fall season. I'd like to congratulate our girls volleyball team on a successful season. As Dr. Hardy mentioned, the varsity team was named the 2022 Suffolk County champions. They played their last game against Hop Hog High School last Friday at the Long Island Championships. Additionally, our varsity football team won their game against Miller Place last Friday and will be playing the John Glenn Knights in the 2022 County Championship this Friday, November 18th at 4 p.m. at Stony Brook University. Come out and support the boys as they try for their first county championship win in school history. Tickets need to be purchased in advance through Section 11. The ticket link was sent out in Mr. Haas's weekly email and can be accessed on gofan.com. And finally, congratulations to the 4 Bayport Blue Point girls of the Say Bay Blue team that swam at the Suffolk County Championships at Stony Brook University last week after an undefeated meet season. Winter sports began practicing yesterday. Good luck to everyone, and we can't wait to see all the amazing things you accomplish this season. As for club activities in the high school, the Student Art League will be meeting in room 327 directly after school on November 17th, December 1st, and December 15th. The Yearbook Committee will be meeting in room 327 right after school on November 22nd, December 8th, and December 21st. The Ecology Club is still fundraising in support of the organization Sea Turtles. They're aiming to protect sea turtle hatchlings. Every $1 raised can help save up to 10 baby sea turtles. The fundraiser will be open through this Thursday, November 17th. The freshman class of 2026 is running a class shirt fundraiser. The link can be accessed via Mr. Haas's weekly email or online at bonfire.com. Please take note that the apparel has the year 2026 on the back of it. Any orders submitted for the class of 2023 Thanksgiving Pie and Baked Goods fundraiser can be picked up next week on Tuesday, November 22nd at the high school from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Production for SpongeBob the Musical is officially underway. Calendars for November rehearsals are available in Ms. Goloski's room or Mr. Weber's office. Additionally, meetings regarding stage crew have begun. If you're interested in helping out the stage crew, please see Mrs. Smith with questions. Stage crew will be meeting almost every single day after school. Come down to help out whenever you can. They're more than happy to welcome any extra hands. If you're willing to donate to the stage crew, they're now accepting old desk chairs, pool noodles, tires, razor scooters, skateboards, etc. Any cast members should start saving plastic water bottles and cans for future use in the production. Other important things to take note of: school picture makeups and retakes for grades 9 through 11 will be held in the auditorium lobby tomorrow, November 16th, and Thursday the 17th. Senior portrait makeups will be held solely on Thursday the 17th in the same location. Students should go down during a free period or lunch period. No passes are required. The 2022-2023 high school yearbook is in production and is now on sale. Be sure to purchase one as a keepsake for years to come. Reach out and submit any photos you want included on replayit.com. They include, but are not limited to, photos of class and work, sports, events, clubs, concerts, vacations, etc. Any and all senior casual portraits and baby pictures should be submitted to Mr. Salino by December 5th. The senior portraits should be a large JPEG file and the baby pictures can be smaller. After speaking with Dr. Harney, it's my hope that within the next few weeks and by the next time we all come together that I'll be able to extend my reports to cover the high school, middle school, and elementary schools. Thank you for your time and please enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Ms. Denton. Any questions from trustees? Thank you so much. As thorough as always, we appreciate it. At this time, we'd like to thank Dr. Harney and his team. We have a special education presentation. I know you've been working on this for a long time, so we appreciate it.
Microphone. Is it okay? Thank you, Mr. Miller. First, I'd like to thank Ms. Ekstrom, Ms. Doyle, and Ms. Okay, Torado, sorry, blanked out for a second, sorry about that, for all their work over the last 3 weeks. Obviously, just to give people a little bit of history if they haven't been following it all, is obviously we've had an enrollment committee for a number of years, and then it was in October, on October 11th, we had done our last enrollment presentation, which really was taking a look at 2 different configurations at that time, our current configuration as it is, and then a K1, 2, 3, 4, 5 model. And it was a little bit different than the presentation we had done back in 2020. And basically at that time, it was really looking at savings from a financial standpoint. Where this one, when the committee went back, they were really taking a look at if we were to make any type of change, where might we be able to offer some other opportunities and being efficient. So that was one of the pieces that came out of the last year or so with the committee. And really at that time, if you look at the last couple of pages, which was not part of any of the other presentations, was kind of the pros and challenges as you looked into that. The reason I'm giving a little bit of context to that is because one of the things that has been going parallel with that, as a matter of fact, as the committee was continuously going, they were looking at a number of the services. They were looking at how we were delivering AIS services, how we were doing our gifted and talented services, how we were doing special ed services. And in the last meeting, that is really what is bringing us here, is though things have been going on a kind of on a parallel track, is at some points they do intersect each other. And that's one of the things where, as we went through the enrollment, when we started to look at our special education services, one of the things that came up, and Dr. Fulton had talked about it the last time, is we have to do this, what they call a comparability report every single year. And it's one of those things when they take a look at the number of staff within a building, the percentage of students within a building that receive all different types of services, not just the special education services, but in this case, that was part of the conversation. And as we talked about is having our co-teaching model at Blue Point Elementary meant that really within our smallest school from a population standpoint, we had the largest population of special education students because that's where the students were going for the co-teaching model specifically. So as the committee was talking about it, one of the things we continuously looked at is, was there ways, if we were to look at any other configurations, or if it wasn't a configuration, how else could we offer our services to our students? One of the things that we've always been able to offer the full continuum of services. So I don't want anyone to ever think that. We've been able to offer that. And when I talk about the continuum of services, I mean from what they call to the least restrictive environment, in which in a lot of cases you'll see students who may be receiving resource room, to as you move up to the continuum where it goes from that to consultant teacher, which you'll hear them talk about, to a special class or a self-contained class. So we've always been able to offer them. The question would be is we've had to have students move from building to building. So as we were looking at the enrollment piece, we're like, was this a possibility as well? Could we try to be able to offer more of the continuum and keep students within the same building? And that's really where this presentation is going to come in tonight and try to provide you with some information. Just so you know, and this is kind of the jump off, is if you go to the next slide, is one of the things we had said was if we were to go to a different configuration, the K1, 2, 3, 4, people have asked, and this is the last you'll hear us talk about this tonight, is what does that mean? Well, it means that we would have been able to offer the full continuum of services within each of the buildings if we were to do that. That's why when they're looking at the proposals that you'll see tonight, we were trying to see what other ways was there to do this if we were to continue within the configuration that we currently are. So with that, that was really the task that Ms. Extra, Ms. Torado, and Ms. Doyle were kind of tasked with as we were looking at this. So with that, I'm going to kind of turn it over to them. And really, again, I just really like to thank them for all their time, for them to turn this around in a very short period of time. So if we can just give them a round of applause and thank them. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Dr. Harney. So thanks so much. Ms. Doyle, our Administrator for Pupil Personnel Services, Ms. Torado, our K through 12 Special Education Chair, and I are really excited to share this proposal with all of you today. It's, as Dr. Harney said, a culmination of years of discussions about what programs we can offer in BBP in our special education continuum. And it's also great because also, as Dr. Harney said, while our conversations about enrollment have been ongoing, our special education conversations have been really running parallel, and we knew that at some point they'd intersect. So this is really a great benefit to both discussions right now to look at different opportunities. Our major objective was to create comprehensive long-term special education program structures to maximize program offerings while decreasing student movement. And you'll see us come back to those two elements over and over again. That's really what drove our decisions as we looked at many different proposals, maximizing program offerings and decreasing student movement whenever possible. And in order to really do that, we had to utilize a lot of data. We looked at current students' needs. We had to project future student needs. We also had to look at our existing resources, and that included our staff, their certifications, the rooms we had available, and really we focused on the 3 elementary buildings because in the secondary level, since in the middle school and in the high school, everybody's housed in the same building, that continuum is available. It's not because the elementaries are separated into 3 different buildings. So that's why we wanted to relook at this and see if there was an effective way, again, to look at long-term implications for staff, minimize student movement, and offer more. So this is sort of the shortened version of what we've done so far. It's been a pretty quick turnaround since the last board meeting. We've sought input from a lot of different stakeholders. We spoke to our administrative team, elementary special education teachers, our SEPTA board. We went back to our administrative team. We met with our general education co-teaching counterparts, and now we're here to present to the board and also the community. Our hope is that we can present some sort of plan to SEPTA and the special education department sometime in December. That way we can meet with CSE chairs, review placement options for next year. And in January, we would present at building faculty meetings as annual reviews begin, so we can plan professional development opportunities, including utilizing our March Superintendent's Conference Day. I'm going to hand this over to Ms. Doyle, our Administrator for People Personnel Services.
Thank you. Okay, so my part of the presentation is, as a special education director, to try to help you, if you don't have a special education background, maybe give you just a brief overview as how special education runs within a school district. We are governed by federal law, which is IDEA, Part 200, which is the Commissioners of New York State's regulations, and of course then the Board of Education's local policies. We are charged with, when we have a student who has been found to have a disability, to place them in a free appropriate public education and to then have them placed in the least restrictive environment possible. How do we get to there? We get to there by holding something called a CSE meeting, which is a Committee on Special Education meeting, where we come together and we decide based on assessments and classroom progress whether the child has a need for a classification. If they do, then we will discuss what program options we have and also whether they might need related services such as OT, PT, or speech. So in special education terms, I just mentioned the CSE, that's the Committee on Special Education. Then there are some program options that you will hear us discuss today. One is the integrated co-teaching, that's the ICT program. That is when a general education teacher and a special education teacher team teach together. There's also a program option of resource room. That's when no more than 5 special education students are pulled from the general education setting, and a special education teacher offers them additional or supplemental services. And then there's also the self-contained or special education class. You'll see in our upcoming slides that we have that noted as SC, and that's when students are pulled into a smaller group, and it's just a very specific special education class taught by a special education teacher. If you look all the way to the right on the bottom of this slide, you'll see ratios 8:1:1 and 12:1:1. What that means in special education terms is that there are no more than 8 special education students in a class to 1 special education teacher to 1 aide or assistant. And the same for no more than 12 special education students in a class, 1 special education teacher, and for this particular ratio, there would be no more than 2 aides or assistants in the class. What we currently offer at Bayport Blue Point is we have 3 elementary schools. We have Academy Street, Blue Point, and Sylvan. Specifically, when we look at what we offer in special education at Academy Street, we have 2 self-contained or special classes, and we have resource room. At Blue Point, we have our co-teaching model, which is K through 5. And if you look right under Blue Point, you will see that K1 and 2-3 are together. That is because currently we are only offering a half-day special education co-teaching program, which is our special education teacher rotates into those classes for 2 hours each day. When we get to 4th grade and 5th grade, we have the full day model. So for 4th and 5th grade, we have a full-time gen ed teacher and a full-time special education teacher working together. Also at Blue Point this year, we have a special class, 12:1:1 for 2nd and 3rd grade, and a special class 5th grade, which is actually a 15:1. We also offer resource room there. And then at Sylvan Elementary, we only have resource room services available.
So what this graphic is going to do is just give you a visual, and we'll run this same graphic throughout the presentation as we go through different scenarios, so you can see how it may change. So right now, this is the current offerings that Ms. Doyle was just explaining. We're going to use, for the purpose of this presentation, buildings 1, 2, and 3, because as we're giving proposals, we're not tying anything essentially to a particular building. So right now, in one building, you can see at the top there, we have special classes, 2 special classes in that building. In the second building, we run co-teaching from K to 5 with 2 special classes. And in the third building, there aren't any special classes or co-teaching, but resource room remains in all 3 buildings. So if we can give you a scenario right now, we're going to follow 2 students in our current configuration, gold student and blue student. In the first example, you have a gold student. They're a general education student. Halfway through their time in elementary school, they need to make a shift into a co-teaching class. In our current scenario, if that student is coming from building 1, they have to change schools to finish out in a co-teaching environment. If you look at our blue student, they're a co-teaching student from kindergarten, and they happen to be at building 2. In this scenario, they don't need to change schools because they're already in the co-teaching school. So we're going to follow the gold and the blue student in all of our scenarios. Obviously, there's many different scenarios we could give, but these are 2 common ones that we found we're going to use. And here's Ms. Torado. She's going to go through the first proposal.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I think this is my first time speaking at a board meeting. For those of you who don't know me, I have been a special education teacher here for the past 14 years, and I truly am invested in the success of our special education programs. So I will roll into our proposal 1. So in proposal 1, as we were kind of speaking before, you could see that currently we have the half-day model at K1 and 2-3 grade levels. So in proposal 1, we would be looking to reinstate full-day co-teaching K through 5. We have really heard from our families and our staff about how valuable this program is and how successful it was running at the full-day capacity. Proposal 1, if we think back to our Blue Point Elementary School model several years ago, when we had the full-day model K through 5, proposal 1 would truly mimic that. However, we would be looking to relocate it to a building with a larger enrollment. So that's what you'll see in the next couple of slides. Additionally, in this proposal, our special class would need to be relocated for September of 23-24. So we would be looking at our current 811 class and relocating that to another building, which you'll see in the next few slides as well. Additionally, in proposal 1, we would be looking to create a new 812 class. The purpose of this would be to be able to create a class that's more specialized with some students who may have some more extensive needs. This would enable us to bring some students back from out-of-district placements as well. So we have some charts and graphs up here. If you look on the left-hand side, it's just a summary of what we are currently offering. You can see in Building 1, we have the special classes with resource room. Building 2 is currently housing all of the co-teaching program and some sporadic special classes, as well as resource room. And Building 3 has resource room. So if we look ahead to 23-24, and you can kind of see we have our little blue person image there. We're going to utilize that person to show you a student traveling through the co-teaching program. So in 23-24, what I do want to point out is that if you can notice under Building 3, there's a big change there. That is where we would relocate the 811 current class from Building 1, and we would begin the creation of the 812 class. The reason that we would need to relocate these students in this proposal is because it is a multi-level grade level class, and we do have incoming K students who would need to go in that classroom next year. If you notice that in Building 2, it no longer has a kindergarten co-teaching section, so grades 1 through 5 would be in Building 2, and the kindergarten co-teaching full day would be in Building 1. If we move ahead to 24-25, you can see that our student has now moved to first grade co-teaching. Now Building 1 is housing full day kindergarten and first grade co-teaching. The remaining students in Building 2 will finish out their co-teaching progression in their building. They will not be switching buildings. Moving ahead to 25-26, you can see that our co-teaching student has now moved to second grade in Building 1. Our other students who are in Building 2 are remaining 3, 4, and 5. And our special classes are still in Building 3. Moving ahead to 26, 27, you can see the same rotation. Now that student is in 3rd grade co-teaching. And in 27, 28, they are now in 4th grade co-teaching. The same thing for all of the students who are starting after the student that we are watching. Kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, they're all going through the progression in Building 1 at this point. Our last year in the proposal is 5th grade co-teaching. You can see in Building 1, that's the full progression now of co-teaching. So in essence, this would be the transition completion for this proposal, ending with Building 1 housing the K through 5 co-teaching program, and as well as resource room grades K through 5. Building 2 would house the special classes at the 12-1-1 or 15-1 level, as well as resource room grades K through 5. And Building 3 would house the special classes 8-1-1, 8-1-2, and resource room K through 5. What would be important to note in this proposal is that each program is designated to a different building. So if a student does require a more restrictive environment during their co-teaching career, they would need to move buildings. I'm going to hand this over to Ms. Ekstrom for a visual.
All right, so using the same visual as we have before, all right, these are the same 2 students and the same needs. So at the end of this entire rotation, so the 28-29 school year, you would have your gold student who started in K, again, general ed, and then switches over to co-teaching, remains in that building because now it's housed in Building 1. But your blue student, who was at Building 2 as their home building, needs to move to access that co-teaching in kindergarten. But you will notice here that there is special ed available in all 3 schools. At the bottom there you'll see, whereas Building 3 didn't have anything in the last configuration, it has 2 special classes. So there are opportunities in each home building for students who need special ed services, although there would still be movement in this. And because you're moving everybody to the building with the higher enrollment, you have more opportunities for increased sections.
So just some considerations that we wanted you to look at for Proposal 1. It would mean moving the co-teaching program to the building with the larger enrollment. In doing this, this would allow additional opportunities for both general education and special education students. However, the ICT program, co-teaching program, and the special class option would not be able to be offered in the same building. And then in addition to that, special education teachers would need to relocate based on student need. For Proposal 2, Mrs. Torado is going to explain that.
Okay, so for Proposal 2, we are kind of labeling the 3-year cohort, and you'll see why in a moment. So again, just like I had said before, we really are looking to reinstate that full-day co-teaching model because we do truly see the value in that. So in this proposal as well, we are looking to reinstate full-day co-teaching K through 5. In this proposal, it would be in the 3-year cohort. Proposal 2 would essentially have the co-teaching program running 50% in one building and 50% in another building, which you'll be able to see a little bit better in the following slides. This proposal would allow for some program flexibility options where a student would be able to access different levels of the continuum within their cohort building. And additionally, in Proposal 2, we are also implementing that addition of the 812 class that we spoke about before. So if we go back to the charts from previous, you can see the 22-23, what we currently have in Building 1, Building 2, and Building 3. In this proposal, we're going to again follow the student so you can kind of see where they're going. In this proposal, we would be starting kindergarten co-teaching in Building 1. In this proposal, we would not be looking to relocate any students in September. All students would be cycling through their programs until they went through the middle school. Following along in 24-25, you can see that that student goes to first grade co-teaching in Building 1. Everything else remains the same. And in 25-26, that student is now in second grade co-teaching. So essentially, the difference here is that in the 25-26 year, in Proposal 2, our cohort rotation or our staffing rotation would be complete. And what I mean by that is we're talking about a 3-year cohort. So we have our K-1-2 in Building 1 and our 3-4-5 in Building 2. What I do want to note is that I don't want anyone to be confused that if I have a co-teaching second grade student in Building 1, is my student now moving buildings for third grade? Absolutely not. We definitely felt in all of our proposals that we do not want the students moving. So essentially what would happen here is that our staff would be fully aware that through a 6-year rotation, they would be teaching 2 grade levels. So at this time, our kindergarten co-teacher would be rotating up to third grade, and you can see that in the next chart. And our student is still in Building 1 for third grade co-teaching. A new section of kindergarten co-teaching would be starting in Building 2, and that kindergarten co-teacher would be rotating down from third grade in Building 2. What's also important to note that in this proposal, if you can see kind of below the co-teaching grades, 1, 2, and 3, there's a special class option in both buildings. Our goal would be for those special class options to match the co-teaching cohort. So for example, if you have a second grade co-teaching student who requires more support, a 12-1-1 option in their grade level would be available in their building, so they wouldn't have to switch buildings to access that program. In the opposite, if they needed a less restrictive environment, that also would be available in their building and they wouldn't need to switch at that grade level. Moving to 27-28, you can see that student is in 4th grade co-teaching. In essence, that means that that 1st grade co-teacher who taught 1st grade for 3 years is now rotating to the 4th grade section, which they will teach for the next 3 years. And in 28-29, our proposal 2, we go down to 5th grade co-teaching. Our transition is complete. You can see that it's an actual opposite effect. So we started in 25-26 with a K-1-2 in Building 1 and a 3-4-5 in Building 2. And now it's just rotated the other way. So Building 1 now houses 3-4-5, Building 2 houses K-1-2, and the rotation would just start all over again. So essentially, Building 1 would have a 3-year cohort of the co-teaching program, resource room, K through 5, the special class cohort to match the ICT grades, and the special class 811 and 812. Building 2 would have the 3-year cohort of the ICT program, resource room, K through 5, and the special class cohort to match the ICT cohort, and Building 3 would have the resource room, K through 5.
So again, we're back to our gold and our blue students in our 3 buildings here. So in this scenario, our gold student, again, from Building 1, who needed to move to co-teaching around 3rd, 4th grade, would be able to remain in their building for the duration. Much as our blue student, who needed co-teaching from kindergarten, would be able to remain in their building for their entire time through 5th grade. You also see that we would match, as Mr. Otto was saying, the special classes to where the cohort is in that building. So that way, if the students needed a more restrictive environment, they wouldn't have to switch schools. Likewise, if they need a less restrictive environment, they're able to go into the general ed classes as well, too. This does not offer anything but resource room in Building 3, but it offers more opportunities within the 2 buildings, to 2 home buildings for Buildings 1 and 2.
So just some special considerations for Proposal 2 is that the ICT program, co-teaching, and special class options would be offered in the same building. 3 special education teachers would relocate to where the needs of our students are. And the special education teachers would know in advance kind of what a rotating grades they would be teaching. So they would be teaching kindergarten for 3 years, and then, or a teacher would be teaching kindergarten for 3 years, and then 3rd grade for 3 years. Then another teacher would know, special education teacher would know that they are teaching 1st grade for 3 years, and 4th grade for 3 years, and then 2nd and 5th. So it's just something that allows teachers to know in advance what their rotation would be.
So in summary, in our current configuration, we have 1 building, 1 elementary building, which houses the majority of special education programs. Again, same continuum. In Proposal 1, our co-teaching classes are offered in the building with the largest enrollment, and the special classes are then housed in the 2 other designated buildings. And in Proposal 2, the special education programs are offered at varying levels within 2 buildings. So really, what we wanted to say was we think these are 2 of the most viable options for the future of our special education programs that allows for greater possibilities for our students. And these scenarios also include, for the most part, less movement for staff and students than other proposals that we had explored. So we really welcome your input, and we thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you guys so much. At this time, we'll open it up to trustees. Any comments or questions? Yeah, Ms. Pignataro.
First of all, thank you, team. That was amazing. I appreciate all the work that went into that. I have a question. I'm not sure who it's for exactly, but when we break out the programs throughout different buildings, would that avoid the situation Dr. Fulton talked to us about last meeting where we were talking about citation from the state, et cetera? So that seems to spread the students out.
Actually, both proposals would reduce the percentage of students that are housed in one building, so it would alleviate.
It would alleviate that
Yeah, Dr.
concern.
Fulton spoke of.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Pignataro, not to just jump in, I would be, just because of the numbers always and what the bottom number is in terms of the overall enrollment, when you're splitting it in half, I can't promise you that that will absolutely meet that comparability report. But what we would be able to do, we believe, Dr. Fulton and I, is we'd be able to submit to the state that, hey, this is our plan as we're addressing it, and that's what we figure. Am I correct in saying that, Dr. Fulton?
What will happen is what I have to do is we ask the state for permission to back the special classes and ICT programs out of our student count, our denominator count, and also for our full-time staff member count, which counts teacher aides and teacher assistants. Because even if we back the special education programs out, you still have the comparison of what our Title I staffing and the denominator is for number of students as compared to the 2 other buildings. So in theory, the balance gives us a greater ability not have to ask for a waiver, but depending on what the enrollment in each building, we still might have to back it out. So I can't promise it 100% guaranteed, but my estimate right now is we would have a greater likelihood of not having to do that in each year.
Thank you all for that presentation, and especially following the blue student around. It was very clear for me what was happening. I really appreciate that. Thank you for listening to parents of our special ed students who have repeatedly said how difficult transitions are and trying to minimize that as much as possible. I love that both of these create an 812 and potentially bring some of our students back into our district. The one question that I had was, for Proposal 1, you mentioned that there might be additional opportunities for all of our students in the larger population building. I'm just wondering what type of opportunities you were referring to.
I mean, you guys can add, is this on? You guys can add to this too, but in Proposal 1, it offers additional opportunities within the 3 buildings. Also, there are opportunities within the sections of since there will be more sections in a building with higher enrollment, there are more opportunities for that student to move in and out of those sections. Whereas right now, where they're currently housed, there's only 2 sections per grade. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Any other trustees? Mr. Johnson?
Got a few questions. Great presentation. I liked it very much. With regard to special education services, what percentage do you think fall within the K through 5 of students would receive some type of special education service?
So as a district, we're running somewhere around 17.5%. Usually in the younger grades, it's a little bit lesser in terms of percentages. And then again, that's if you're going across the entire class, across the 3 buildings, that's usually what you're looking at. But that's about what we're running as a district right now, about 17.5% thereabouts from of our population. And the reason we were looking at this is when you were talking about how Blue Point is situated right now, we have about 28% there. That was on one of the charts that I had done, 2 presentations ago. So that was, we were concerned about the percentage of students there, and that was based on the report that Dr. Fulton's been working on and stuff.
So it's a pretty significant, amount, so it's very important to have the best program we can have. Now, with proposal 1 or 2, is anything contingent upon that, like additional funding, or is the reconfiguration we discussed a couple of weeks ago, is that something that's contingent upon being able to go to proposal 1 or 2?
So I'm not sure what you mean about if the reconfiguration would be contingent for 1 and 2.
Are you talking about if we're to use
talking about if
these
we're-
proposals here? Is this what you're talking to, Mr. Johnson? Is wondering if there was any financial piece to it? Yeah, we actually think we could do it with the staff that we have, and we actually think we'll be able to offer more in the sense of we'd be able to go to full-time co-teacher, which we don't have at all the grades right now, and we'd be able to add that 812, which is more of a behavioral type of class, which allows us to bring some students back as well. That's what we envision.
No additional staff.
And that's above and beyond the proposals that we have.
Yeah, for example, if you're going back to the enrollment committee, we did feel that we'd be able to offer the continuum in each of the buildings, whether it was a K1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we did think that we'd be able to use it within our staff as well. So it's similar in that sense, if that's what the question was.
Yes. So I guess my final question is, as professionals, as the subject matter experts, does these type of changes, whether it's proposal 1, 2, or adding this additional stuff, would this contribute to a greater level of academic success for this particular group?
I think, and again, it's always you're trying to predict some of this. I think that would obviously be the hope. I think one of the things Ms. Kanye was asking before, I think in terms of opportunities, for example, now you may have 3 classes where you can mainstream in a grade level where currently you have 2, so you might be able to meet individual needs a little bit more in that way. The other piece that plays into it is I think it would bring some more stability, which I do believe then would have an impact on academic success. For example, now as we've talked about it and this is a concern that many districts have, whether you're large or small, the more buildings you have, you kind of get spread out. By us trying to make a change in any of these proposals would hopefully allow us to have more of, I keep talking about that continuum, the types of services located in one building. If you're looking at this, proposal 2, though it splits up the co-teaching and kind of shares it more amongst 2 buildings, we believe that would actually probably even bring more stability because then you'd have the corresponding special class or self-contained class within that building as well. Where if they all just went to the largest building, you would still, if a student had to move from co-teaching to a self-contained or a special class, then they may have to change again. We're trying to limit it as much as possible. So I do think that would have an impact on a student's overall academic success.
Ms. Saron?
Thank you so much for providing this tonight. It was so helpful, and you can tell that you put so much time into it. And I love that you have the students and their movement in top consideration, and also the idea of opening a new class to bring back students that are out of district. They belong in their community, so that's really wonderful that you're considering that. This has been a lot of information to take in tonight. I'm going to have to read it again, but I think my question might be about just the side-by-side of the proposal 1 and 2. Is there a way to determine what kind of movement would that be like from the get-go for students that are currently enrolled in the programs?
Well, in the co-teaching, there wouldn't be because everything always enters in the kindergarten class. I don't know if you want to speak to the special classes.
would start.
It's starting out at
So no
kindergarten.
one currently would be moved.
So for the co-teaching program, we're always starting at the kindergarten level because we really don't want to have to move the students. In Proposal 2, we're not looking to move any of the students. They're all going to cycle in at grade K. Proposal 1 is the only proposal where we would have to move. It would be a group of about 7 students, just because it is a multi-level, grade level class. And in order to bring those incoming K students in, we'd have to move the other students to make it a complete class.
Thank you for explaining that.
No problem.
Ms. Connick?
This might be a little early to know this, but I know another parent concern is having siblings in the same building. Would we be able to say if a family is zoned for building 3 and one of their students needs services in building 2, might we be able to accommodate that student's siblings with a move to building 2 also?
So I will answer that one. So we have considered that. And the answer is yes and no in one sense, and I'll explain that. So for example, in the second proposal, the only time that you would probably have 2 students, if they were siblings, possibly separated is if they were 2 students who required co-teaching, just because we had split the program now because we're trying to place it in 2 buildings. We went back to a history. That has not happened too often, but we did look at that because we were concerned about that, so that's one. The second part is if there was another sibling, I would try to treat it the same way we treat it right now. So for example, if a student was moving from Sylvan or Academy due to a CSC to a co-teaching model at Blue Point, we would offer the opportunity, if the parent would like the student to go to that school, we would do it. The only caveat with that is if it were to break a class or add something like that, typically that's not happened, but if it would, then that would be something that we would say we probably would not do it at that time. So we would try to do it, which is what we do now. And we've had parents take up us on both ends. Some have chosen to go, and some have said, no, we'll continue to leave the other child here.
Ms. Saran?
Just one last question. For the integrated co-taught classes, what is the number of students that receive support in those classes typically? Is there a range? Is there a cap that you use for the integrated co-taught?
Sure, so there's absolutely a range. From year to year, it's different. I can tell you one grade level right now is at 8, while another is at 3, another is at 6, so it's hard to predict those numbers. We do have a 50% cap, so we can't pierce the 50% cap. Typically, we run a little bit smaller than that, but as we're transitioning in this program, there might be times that we are running very close to our 50% mark, just to get our program back at the full day capacity and into whatever rotation we might adhere to for this.
And just thinking about that, was there any discussion about the possibility of having to open up another section because of that number going up high?
Yes, so we have that discussion every year. That would be something that's not, different in any of these proposals. That happens year to year, and we have to, come forward and say once we get to that cap, we would be mandated to split the class.
Okay, thank you.
Any other trustee questions? All right, if I could just kind of summarize this plain and simple. Would this mean proposal 1 would mean next year there would be 1 through 5 co-teaching at Blue Point and the kindergarten will move elsewhere and the 2 special classes would be outside of Blue Point? Does that make sense?
Correct.
Just
The
so everyone- I just know we have
811.
some people online, or I think we just need a layman's terms. So next year, Blue Point would be 1 through 5 co-teaching. The biggest school, which I'm assuming would be Sylvan, would have kindergarten, or academy, sorry.
Correct. Blue Point would still house its current 12-1-2 class. We wouldn't look to move those students. So it would be the 8-1-1 class that would be relocating in Proposal 1.
And then proposal 2, eventually it would get to K1, 2 in one building and 3, 4, 5 in another before it rotated again.
Correct.
Is that easier to say?
The only other difference is in the second proposal is we'd be able to have the corresponding special class, self-contained class within that building, as opposed to proposal 1. Again, then you'd have the same possibility where it'd be really how it's set up in Blue Point right now, just in a bigger building, just so everyone can understand that.
Just one quick question, or really a statement from online. Ms. Alexander said, "Thank you, Ms. Ekstrom, Ms. Doyle, Ms. Torado, for your comprehensive, informative presentation. Your thoughtful explanation is greatly appreciated. It is quite impressive to see how much time and energy you have given to the ideas in just a few short weeks. Providing a continuum of services where our children do not have to move would be the most beneficial." Open it up to community members for any special education questions about the presentation. Mr. Roop? Mr. Roop, you're going to be the first one to test out our new system. Lucky you.
All right, yeah, fire up the timer.
Fire it up.
My name is Patrick Rube, Blue Point. It was a great presentation. From what my understanding is, you don't seem to want the children or the students to move to different buildings. That's kind of like what I've been saying for the last 4.5 years with this enrollment committee. Let's not move our kids every 2 years. So, I mean, I really hope you take their advice and put this Princeton plan thing away.
Thank you,
Because,
Mr. Roop.
I mean, you have your own staff saying it's not a good idea. So please listen to the staff in the community. And I appreciate you last time, Mr. Miller, for voting that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roop. Any other? You coming up? No, not coming up. Any other questions about the presentation? Like we said, Dr. Harney, your team, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. I know it's never easy coming up here to do a presentation. How about one more round of applause for these guys? All right, so we'll open it up to the trustees in regards to Proposal 1, Proposal 2, or would we like more time to consider, ask questions? Next steps.
I personally need more time to digest this information.
Okay? Ms. Conley?
My gut says I love Proposal 2, but I'd also like to go over the financial impact before we say go ahead.
There really isn't one, but
We do not see a financial impact, okay? And as I said, we think we're actually going to be able to offer more now, which is our ultimate goal.
all right, so if we're not making a decision tonight, what would we need for the next meeting to make a decision?
So, I mean, we went over the proposals, but we never got I'd like to hear a recommendation from, I mean, that to me, the driving force. I'm not subject matter expert, you guys are, so what's the recommendation that I could support?
I think in terms of taking a look at this and trying to offer more of the continuum along with the full co-teaching would be the Proposal 2 is I think what we'd look at, because then this way you'd have a continuum of services or more of the continuum of services within each of the buildings. I think that's where we are, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think as they're kind of shaking their heads right now, I think that's where we would propose, but we wanted to offer other options as well. According to those three, yeah, they're telling us it's cost,
It is
neutral.
no new staff. I mean, the cost of maybe moving the K teacher that first year to their new room, that would be the only thing I think you would
Just-
incur.
I will always say this when it comes to support type of services, right? Is you never know who's going to move into the district or what is going on during the year. So I don't want to say that I don't come to you in 6 months from now and say, hey, listen, we're going to have to do something because of A, B, and C. That's always a possibility. But where we sit on November 15th, we feel that, it's staff neutral and being able to add more.
Hate to put you guys on the spot, but what would be the difference between Proposal 2 and 1 that made you recommend 2 over 1, I guess? Maybe it's not fair to put you guys. Dr. Harney?
Yeah,
maybe
I
you-
don't have a problem with it. It's really how I just answered it. It's really allowing us, one, to offer more special ed services in more of the buildings. And really the second one is where we'd be able to, if a student was in a general ed class and then one needed to go to a resource room and then needed to go to co-teaching and then to a special class, the way the configurations are right now as of today, they'd be able to stay in the same location. Wherein Proposal 1, They'd be able to do the resource room and co-teaching possibly once they're there. And then if they needed to go to a special class, they'd have to go to another school. That's really the main difference.
Thank you for pointing that out. As I said, it's not side by side, so it's hard to see that. And I think that's a very valid point, Dr. Harney. Thank you.
The only thing that we cannot predict is if you had, like I said, the two students who were receiving co-teaching services who are second and fifth grade, because they, in this case, they would not be together. But saying that is if they needed other services for themselves, they'd be getting it in the building that they're in. And again, the idea would be is once the student enters a building, hopefully, is that they would stay within that building.
Any other trustee comments or questions? So now, hearing the recommendation, do we need more time, or do we want to come back to this next board meeting and discuss?
I think some of it will play into the enrollment piece as well.
Well, and I don't think we should even talk about maybe a final decision until we find out what's going on with the enrollment.
I can give you an update on the survey if you want, while we're here, I can do that.
That'd be great.
Would you like me to do that? I can do that.
Yeah.
So I have started to do, I've actually spent a lot of time on this, trying to figure out, I was charged with at the last meeting to kind of take a look into a survey. I thought that maybe we could use our PR firm Syntax that people are aware of, and speaking to them, this is not something that they do. They suggested that I go through our BOCES. I went through our BOCES. Our BOCES doesn't specifically do surveys. And again, when I was asking for them, I was asking them about the survey. I was asking, one of the things that was coming up last time was about the validity, correct, in terms of the results of it. So that was one of the things that I was really trying to focus on with them. So they had pointed me to a third party who would do it from beginning to end. And we're still trying to play around with what the cost would be. The range probably right now is, I don't even want to predict because I have to take the mailings into consideration, so that's some information I wanted to give to you. But they think that they can look at it either based on we were trying to look at it as where we do, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Trying to do it if we were doing it from households or if we were going to try to do it from the people in the community. And I was just using how people, when we did the mail ballots years ago during 2020, they talked about they would be able to do it from beginning to end, which they would customize the survey questions. To do that, they would take a look at all the presentations we've done, all the board meetings and all of that, and then they would create the survey. It would go out. They would try to attach a unique identifier for people, so that would help with the validity piece. And in total, it would probably take them from beginning to end, roughly 6 to 8 weeks. One of the things we had talked about is it may be worth having, again, I've had 2 conversations with them, but I think I may want them to also have a conversation with all of us as a group at some point.
All right, so we'll wait for next time. We'll get more information on the survey, and then we'll have a further discussion on the direction of special education as well. Because I think we have to answer the first one before the second one.
I think you need to have all the information on the survey, and then, as I said, I would like them to come and answer any questions you may have as well. So if that's okay with you guys, I would like to do that as we're going forward.
Any questions on that? Comments? All right, Dr. Harney, your team, thank you so much. Appreciate your time tonight. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items the board would like removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Not hearing any, can I have a motion to approve consent agenda items F, G, H, I, J, and K? Ms. Saron, second. Ms. Conlon, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to the regular agenda, we have 7 items tonight. Can I have a motion to approve the Project Save Committee with the members listed as is? Mr. Krug, second. Ms. Pignataro, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to Number 2, can I have a motion to approve the second reading of policy 1420, complaints about curricular or instructional materials? Ms. Pignataro, second. Ms. Conlon, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to number 3, can I have a motion to repeal any of the policies to be completed with 2 readings, 2410? Ms. Conley, second. This is Ms. Saron. This was discussion. This was already incorporated into policy 1420, just so everyone is aware. That's why it's being abolished. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to number 4. Can I have a motion to repeal any policy to be completed with 2 readings, policy 2410? Ms. Collins, second. Ms. Saron. This was incorporated into policy 6710.1, just so we're all aware. Purchasing. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Can I have a motion to approve Board Policy 2410 that requires a repeal of any policy to be completed with 2 readings? This is the enrollment of youth released or conditioned release from residential facilities. This is incorporated into policy 5150, school admissions and residency requirements. Oh, Ms. Pignataro, second. Ms. Saron, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 2 more. Can I have a motion to waive the second reading to abolish policy 1420R, complaints about curricular or instructional materials? Ms. Conlon, second. Ms. Conlon, this is also going to be abolished and be incorporated into another policy. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Can I have a motion to gratefully accept from the Academy Street Elementary PTA $500? Ms. Saron, second by Ms. Pignataro. We just want to thank, as always, the PTA. This will go towards an assembly for the 4th and 5th graders, and we're so thankful. Thank you guys so much. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll open it up to the community members for any new business. Just ask for your name, and we'll start that beautiful timer. Come on down. While you're coming down, Dr. Harney's got one more thing.
Ms. Denton reminded me I inadvertently had forgotten to congratulate our swim team that we share with Save, so I'd like to congratulate them. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't wish Shannon Sweezy the best of luck, who's going to be going to the States. I had missed her, so I apologize to her for that. So I just wanted to share that as well. So congratulations to her and good luck. That's this weekend.
Thank you. Okay. Hi. So I was going to, well, first I'm Christine Perry, Blue Point parent. I was going to speak at the last meeting, and I let my discomfort discourage me. However, I realized that sometimes the issues worth addressing are going to absolutely make us uncomfortable. That being said, at the meeting on October 11th, a few parents spoke about the books that are currently under review at the high school. They supported the books and stated that people are taking certain pieces out of context. I agree that certain things taken out of context aren't always what they seem, and that research should be done prior to forming our opinions. I urge other parents to do the same. Find out what's available to our children. Get involved. Take the time to collect your thoughts before speaking up. With that in mind, I purchased the book, one of the books in question, and read it cover to cover prior to making my opinion. I'm going to suggest that anyone watching from home, these words are not mine. I wouldn't have my kids around for these, so just to keep that in mind. So I'd like to read you a definition. Pornography. Printed or visual material containing the explicit description or display of sexual organs or activity intended to stimulate erratic rather than aesthetic or emotional feelings. I know with my conversation I had today that our legal team has a different, maybe a little bit different of an opinion on that definition. Is that how much time I have left? Moving on. Okay. So I'd like to read you a little excerpt from the book. I got a new strap-on harness today. I can't wait to put it on you. It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. You are going to look so hot. I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside me. Holy shit. This is the most turned on I've ever been in my life. I am dying. This is the visual I've been picturing, but I can't feel anything. This was much hotter when it was only in my imagination. Let's try something else. For anyone that hasn't read the book, these are the images that are supposedly not pornographic images. If you can't see, let me know, and I'd be happy to walk up there. Anybody that can see? This is in a school library where any kid, my son, who will be in 9th grade down the road, will head into high school at 13 years old. If my son accidentally came across this book where he is supposed to be learning reading, math, writing, history, I would be repulsed. I don't care what the rest of the context of this book is. Porn is porn. And these images are exactly that. And the fact that there's a book review, that there is a whole process being had right now, a whole committee, that this is in question, this should be seen and instantly removed from the shelves. I understand that our books some are recommended. Sometimes I was told they come with other books. You know, maybe they don't get to read through every single book, but our vetting process is not working because the excerpts from the other book under review are horrific. Very, very visual description of incest between two cousins, where one cousin is then telling the other one, it's okay, we're supposed to do this. That does not belong on the shelves of a library. And I don't know who would stand up here, I know I'm over, but I don't understand who would stand up here and ever say that it's being taken out of context. What context? In what world do we not have a moral compass anymore to understand that this is inappropriate? There's a public library. By all means, shelve the public library with all you want. Have an adult section. I expect that.
All right, well, thank you so much. The book is under review right now, and we'll definitely let you know the next steps.
I would just like to address the process prior to it ever having to be reviewed. If a parent hadn't come across it, I think our process is failing, and maybe that's something we need to look into.
We definitely can always improve. Thank you so much. You want to come down, Ms. Cole? She's coming right now. How are you?
Hello, my name is Michelle Clune. I'm a Blue Point resident. The first thing I'd like to say is, with all due respect to you, as you stated,
keep it up here though, please.
you have no high school children. The difference between kids in elementary school and kids in high school is huge. Having books that they can relate to is also huge. I would like to remind you, I'm 52 years old. When I was in high school, I was reading Flowers in the Attic. Flowers in the Attic was probably the most popular book in my school that also relates to incest between a brother and a sister. I was not damaged by it. Books need to be of different ranges. I understand that you're upset about this, but when my kid was an infant, I didn't think I was going to feed her French fries. I did. It's different having kids in elementary school and what you think is appropriate for them. Until they reach the age at which they are reading these books, you don't really know. So I do understand and respect your opinion, but I think probably the people that have the kids in the high school also have a different opinion based on their kids' development.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from community members? Not hearing any. Any trustee new business?
Just have
Not here.
one quick thing. I know we're moving towards the end, but just wanted to recognize that today is SRP Day, which is School-Related Professionals. So just wanted, I'm sure I could speak on behalf of the board. I know that's probably a grand gesture, but I think we can do it, to thank all the school-related professionals in BBP that really keep our schools running. So custodians, secretaries, bus drivers, TAs, classroom aides, tech support folks, I think that's everybody, nurses, food service, thank you. So the people that really keep our schools running day to day, and today is their day, but really every day should be their day. So thanks to all the SRPs in BBP.
Thank you so much for saying that. Any other trustee new business?
I was going to say the same, so thank you, Jess, for doing that. I also thank you, Emily, for your comprehensive report, as always, at the beginning. I just wanted to mention that Tuesday the 22nd at 7 p.m., there is a CB's Student Talent Show right up on this stage. I'm always so impressed by all of the student musicians and dancers who get up there, so come check them out.
Thank you so much. Any other trustees? Not hearing anything, just want to say, hope you guys all have a great holiday next week. Looking forward to having everyone back, but have a great time with your family, and don't forget to kind of pause and give thanks. So thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for staying tonight. Have a great night. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Jumped on that one. Ms. Conlon, Mr. Johnson, all in favor? Have a great night, guys.